Okay, Neil. A scenario for yourself then. I was speaking to a HR manager recently who was going for a director's role. Brilliant candidate, but before they could go through the final stage of the hiring process, the business said to them that they need to interview more diverse candidates first. Do you think D&I is brilliant, but do you think there's a chance that we go too far the other way and then maybe get positive discrimination or whatever it may be?
I mean, this is really tricky territory, isn't it? Because there's a fine line between what's lawful and what's not. You know, I'm personally comfortable with a request to have a diverse set of candidates brought forward. So, you know, I think that is about leveling the playing field, right? And it's about creating access for groups that would otherwise not necessarily be getting an equal footing. There's lots of layers to your question. So I think in principle, the concept of having diverse candidate slates is valid, and I think that again, research would suggest it drives more diverse outcomes. So you have more diversity in your shortlist, there is more likelihood of diverse candidates sort of proceeding and potentially being selected. So I support and celebrate that. And there is sort of a part of the, I mean, for me, it's a bit of a false narrative, and it's a false binary. It's, you know, this choice between being meritocratic or diverse. We can be one or the other. I strongly believe that we can and have to be both, right? There are qualified people from all groups, from all that, you know, fit all sorts of dimensions of diversity. And the challenge that organizations have is making themselves available to those groups, but also seeking them out. So it's tricky. But, you know, the disappointment that somebody might feel being told, okay, we really want to progress with your application, but we can't do that until we've met all sorts of other diverse people. I can certainly appreciate this is the frustration that somebody might feel at that suggestion, because I think that probably introduces the wrong kind of feeling and vibe to the process, right? What sounds to me like it's a legitimate and perhaps authentic approach to by an organization that genuinely wants to be more diverse and more inclusive. On the receiving end of that, you kind of think, well, are they doing that because they just want to tick a few diversity boxes, or is this, you know, really genuinely because this is their sort of inclusive approach? Protected characteristics protect everybody. You know, they don't just protect underrepresented groups. So an organization's got to be very careful about balancing that, you know, their desire to be more diverse and more inclusive in their approach with the lawful approach to recruiting.
Okay, then, another question I'd love to ask is, from a candidate's perspective, what can I look for, or how can I tell a business is truly inclusive and are not just a tick box kind of organization?
Mm-hmm.
What can I look for to really know that they are inclusive?
It's a lot of those signals that I was talking about before. I mean, you can learn a lot from the website. You can look at the leadership teams, you can get a sense of the profile and some of the challenges. What I would say is dig a little bit deeper than the surface there, because if you've got, for example, an organization that has an all-white executive team as one illustration, look for more information about what they're doing about that, because those types of changes take time. You know, we won't see in many organizations, I think, you know, an overnight switch to have full gender representation, racial and ethnic representation. So dig into the diversity and inclusion content on the website and really sort of have a feel for that. But then also ask questions about it. You know, as you go into organizations, ask more about it. You know, some of the other signals I think would be around the postings themselves, the recruitment process, you know, how forthcoming are organizations with regards to accessibility. That's a great signal. If you get no vibes at all from there, then that gives you a sense of whether or not an organization is really serious in that regard. Who interviews you? You know, we talked about the diversity on recruitment panels and interview teams. There's lots of things, I think. Sometimes I would say you do need to dig, because it might just be that it's not that visible, but it is there.
Yeah.
So it, you know, it might not be immediately obvious, but it's there if you ask. But there's so much, I think, that would be a giveaway, that an organization's not really thinking about this.
Yeah.
And you probably wouldn't have to dig too deep to find that out.
So another question to yourself then, Neil. Let's, obviously D&I is brilliant. A lot of people are really passionate about it. Let's say I'm looking to take a career change, or maybe get into the D&I industry and take up a role similar to yourself. Do I need to be a D&I candidate myself in order to go into a role like that and have a difference, or have a, you know, an impact?
It's a great question, and there are probably many camps on that. There are probably some that would pretty hard line and would say you need a grounding in it, and it would be difficult to perform the role effectively without an appreciation for it. I don't think it's something that you can step into and know everything about straight away. My own journey has been fairly gradual, getting into it, and it's been a very, very steep learning curve. I also don't think it's enough to be an ally, to step in and get it right. I think you've got to do the work. You've got to put the time in to really sort of understand the issues and the challenges that underrepresented groups face, because if you are going to be in a D&I role, you are the voice of those groups very often, and if you can't appreciate the challenges that those groups face, it makes it very tricky. But I do think, you know, there's a contradiction if we say, you know, if we want to recruit more inclusively, let's look at competencies, let's look at skills, versus, you know, out and out requirements. You know, we can't on the one hand say that and then say something different for being a DE&I professional. But you know, so I think that you can, and you can grow and learn. But and it's relatively young as a field, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
I know people who have been in this space for decades. It's now in the spotlight in a way that it has never been, and certainly organizations are creating roles at a pace that I don't think we've ever seen before. There is a certain amount of base knowledge that I think you need. I mean, you really need to understand equalities law. I think you need to really have a great grounding in a lot of the people spaces within organizations. But I would be a bit of a hypocrite, having come from a communication background. Say, you know, if I sat here and said, yes, you absolutely must, you know, have a qualification in this, that and the other. For me, it's about really sort of putting the work in, building up your knowledge, using research to ground your work, and just an openness to learning all the time. There is not a day that goes by, I think, where I don't learn something new about the space.
Final question then, Neil, which we ask everybody. You're starting a new business venture tomorrow. You can pick any business partner you wish, basically, from any sort of walk of life, past or present. Who would be your dream business partner? Who would you take on the venture with you?
Oh, blimey. It's a really great question. I don't know. I really don't know. Might have to think about this one for a while. I don't think I can single anybody out, to be quite honest. I guess I don't think about this as much as I should. I think it would have to be someone that I would just have so much fun with. Life is far too short to not enjoy what you're doing in your 9 to 5. So it would have to be someone really fun, I think.
Okay, Neil, brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm really sure our networks are going to love it as well. So yeah, thanks for your time.
Totally. Really enjoyed speaking to you.
Cheers, Neil. Thank you.
Thank you.